Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Universal Panel 32 Big History Teachers and Students. I'm Aidan Wong, your moderator of this section. In this session, we have teachers of Big History from Cameroon, US, and Hong Kong to share their experience and strategies for empowering young people to see the world in all its complexity and joy. Uh, Before we start, allow me to give my huge appreciation to two Cameroon speakers, Perpetua and Eric. They have overcome many technical difficulties in taking and uploading their videos and trying so hard to find a capable device and stable internet. Uh, Unfortunately, it is 5 a.m. in Cameroon and they don't have stable internet connection at this early time. I guess we may not have Perpetua and Eric for live discussion. Um, so, may I introduce you our first speaker, Ms. Perpetua Bih. Perpetua is the first grade teacher at the Government Bilingual Primary School in Yaoundé, the capital of Cameroon, with a background in administration and business management. She taught a year in Kuwait City and then returned to teach in Cameroon. She is a founding member of the African Big History Association. Perpetua, please.
Hi, my name is Perpetua from Cameroon. I am a teacher in Government Bilingual Primary School, Bastos, Yaoundé. I am one of the teachers that were trained by Mr. Tang from Malaysia while he was here in Cameroon. And we have been trying to teach the children big history, which has been quite challenging. It's not very easy to teach children at the primary school. I kind of brought subjects like big history, and you need to try to bring it down to their level of understanding. Yes, and we have to also know these children are coming from different backgrounds with diverse culture, religion, and beliefs. So each time we are talking, they are trying to relate what you are saying, what they already know, what were taught to them by their parents or their pastor. Yeah, so they are trying to relate what you are saying with that, and they tend to ask you a lot of questions. Yes, a child will ask you that they know that God created the earth and the first human being made Adam and Eve. Why are you saying that human beings evolved from this to this to this? So, and you have to answer. And then you have to be very careful, because what you say is what they'll take back home to their parents. And their parents will also come for you, or they'll write to the school. Yes, because they will be like you are trying to confuse their kids, because what you are saying is contradicting to their beliefs and their religion. So it's quite challenging. So in order not to have problems with the family and the school, what I do is that during my storytelling time, that's where I come in with my big history. I let the children tell their story, and I will tell my own story about big history. And when I'm teaching them, I also bring in some songs that will motivate them and make the subject interesting. And these songs are not just mere songs, they are inspirational songs, they are good songs that will help to build the children, and I'll make sure that it relates to what I am teaching them. For example, if you watch our by presentation, you will see my children presenting a short story about the earth, and they had to bring in some songs to make it interesting. So the same way they were presenting it, that's the same method I'm using in teaching them, so that when they get back home, They will tell their parents that my teacher told a story today about big history, and this is what happened, this is what happened. And when the parents will get to hear that it's a story, they will not bother, because a story can be anything. It can be true, it can be lie, it can be formed by any person. So for that one, you have no problem when you bring it, when you present big history as a story to kids. And when you present it as a story, it sticks. Yes, because children love storytelling. It sticks in their minds. So what I'm trying to do is to create a foundation, is to lay a foundation of big history in them, so that as they are going ahead, they already have in mind something existing like big history, and they also meet other subjects that will also have topics there that will relate to big history, and they will flow. Because at this level, they don't get to choose what they study. The parents and the school choose for them. But at a higher level, a child will decide what to study. So what we do is that, what I do is that I try to lay a foundation, yes, in their lives concerning big history. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Swabi. They have a short presentation about the earth. So they will be presenting a short story about the earth. So great. Can you start?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. We want to say a short story about the earth. The earth was very dark and there was no light. After the Big Bang, what happened? The stars were formed and there was light everywhere. Yes, that's why stars are singing. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Yes, after the stars were formed, what happened? The trees and flowers started growing and everywhere was beautiful. Yes, that's why flowers and trees started singing in my dialect every morning. I like to go now to Bonanza, oh yeah. I like to go now to Bonanza, oh yeah. After the trees and flowers was formed, what happened? Animals and birds were created. Yes, that's why animals and birds started singing in my dialect. Tombe Nagani, etu fotu. Tombe Nagani, etu fotu. Yes, after the birds and animals were created, human beings was also created, and you can see children are playing and singing in my dialect. Wakwaye, 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 wakwaye. Yeah, that's the short story about that. Yeah, that's the short story about the earth. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Perpetua, and your lovely student. Good to see you here. Appreciate it. Not sure whether you can see the screen is full of heart emojis and thumbs up, which is the appreciation from our audience. So thank you so much. Next, We have another speaker also from Cameroon, Mr. Nganfon Goubissih. Eric is a primary section teacher at Amity International College in Yaoundé. He believes teaching fulfills his desire to help improve the world community. He served as the first president of the African Big History Association. So, Eric, please.
Hi, greetings to you all on this platform. Hope that everybody is well here. My name is Nganfon Eric. I am a teacher in Turkish Marriage Foundation here in Cameroon. I'm equally a big history teacher, trained by Mr. Tan during his days here in Cameroon. Yes. So happy to be one of you here to share my experience about teachers and students concerning big history. Yes, big history being not too long as it was being introduced here in Cameroon. There are a lot of ways in which we use to pass across big history knowledge. We use our different means like the traditional dances, story telling, like we quite just throw like a light in our old days. We don't used to sit beside the fireside and their grandparents will do have a lot of stories with them, and they will be able to transmit onto them what they have been able to experience throughout life, and equally some stories about humanity, about the society, about animals, plants, and even of the earth and its creation. Yes, besides this one, we use other plays, like for instance, when you observe the video that you will soon see, discover the way that there's a lot of play, jokes, but various ideas about big histories being passed across. Looking like in other areas that we used to play under the moonlight at night, tells us a lot of story about the moon and what it embodies. You see that when you observe this video about, we choose a particular thing about the boom because it cut across a lot of cultural practices. That is why we simply choose it, because in our traditional practices, broom has a lot of significance. When you observe it, discover that many learners are so excited to study big history and to practice it. In this sense, it moves faster than when you just talk about it. Yes, with the broom, which is being used in many traditional things, you discover that it says about, it has a meaning of royalty. It embodies unity, peace, power, and strength, even togetherness, and is equally used by the chief to bless the subjects and so on. Yes, out of this, big history has got a lot of things because it actually came in the right time, because by a closer observation for the past 50, 60, and even 70 years, there has been a gradual fall in the African and the Cameroonian cultural values. In this sense, many things are being kept away, embracing things that are no longer too useful to us. But we hope big history came in the right time. And in the long run, we wish to extend big history to many other areas, because for now, it has not yet gone into the roots. Without being too much, take a look at the videos and you'll have more of it. Thank you for listening. See you another time.
Take out your broom. Let me see. Finally. Amanda, take up your broom. In your culture, what do they do with a broom? Who is this here? In your culture, what do they? How do they use the broom? How do they use the broom? Please, this is one of the most interesting things that can ever happen in Africa, where broom is being made following local methods. Obviously, just like it in the history of my culture, this is the history of our culture. Broom symbolizes peace, fire, right? And everything alongside. Broom symbolizes peace, fire, and everything. So I just like seeing this, so nice. It is okay. Oh! Let me do again. Do it now, let me see. What is this? Those are the signs of power, and royalty. I just like that. This is the history of my culture, the attachment to big history, just like it. So interesting to see the culture being displayed here. Children from diverse nations, a sign of power, purity, unity, and love. This is just a draft of my little big history of my culture. Just keep pushing big history ahead. This is life. This is life. This is life. This is my culture. Producing broom. This broom was earlier made far before the BCs. What can you use the broom for?
I'll sweep my house and the school and my grandmother's house.
Yes.
And sometimes I'll sweep my parents' house.
Okay. Vanilla, what will you use the broom for?
I'll sweep my room. I'll do many. I'll sweep every compound I found dirty. I'll sweep even the bush. I'll sweep.
Good. In your own culture, what did you see your king using the broom for? Have you ever seen that? Yes.
I saw on TV that some of the kids, they will use those kinds of leaves to use as if they were fans.
Okay. Okay.
I'm seeing that doing like this on someone that do like
How do they do it?
like this.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And what does that mean?
Maybe the king is blessing.
Blessing the subject. That is our culture. Yeah. Please. Okay. I love this. This is the history of my culture. This is big history being done presently in the.
Just like any other association, the African Big History Association is made of so many big history teachers came together to make up this association. One of them is Mr. Aji Joseph there, and we equally have some of them doing a lot of work out there. Good.
Yes, hello, my name is Mr. Aji Joseph. I am one of those that were trained by Mr. Tang in Cameroon. In fact, I love big history because big history help us to teach our culture well. And for me, it was really a great passion because I, for one, am a fan of music. I love music. I do music. So after I had the encounter with Mr. Tang, I've been using big history in order to develop my environment, to teach my kids, and that was really good for me. Yes, I came across the videos of David Christian, then equally other videos about Big Bang, and that has actually helped me to improve myself. Then coming back to my own culture, because I am in I hail from the Southwest, that has equally helped me in order to use my culture with the knowledge I acquired in big history, in order to pass across my culture easily to my kids. Hello children.
Hello, sir.
Hello children.
Hello, sir.
Hello children.
Hello, sir.
Prip 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 prip.
Hooray!
Prip 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 prip.
Hooray!
Goodbye. Okay, thank you very much.
that you will still see below stands for our big historical cultural dance, that which you find our great grand mothers, some younger children, they don't sing it using words, but they just hum. In the course of doing this, they send across a lot of historical messages. This particular traditional dance takes place when they want to start clearing the farm, meaning it describes the origin of agriculture in my tradition. When they're working, when they started to work the farm, somebody thought of that. What do we plant crops upon? They say it is on the earth, it is on the soil. So they started asking a lot of questions. But where did the soil come from? But where did this earth come from? Then they started asking questions. But from the big one that they asked is, where did the earth come from? That is why you find the different ones who are trying to tune the song and some are trying to reply. They give different responses. Like one says that the earth came from the sun. Another one says that the earth came from the large ocean bodies that we find. Some say no, it broke up from the mountain. Others equally trace it out, it's from God. And some say that they are all from the plants that we... Yes. And in this light, you find that those younger children who are there playing and dancing alongside with them, they try to inculcate them into their various memories. They get them year in, year out. And as they grow up, the big history is being transmitted down to them. Those particular people are equally from a local community school in that particular area because it is my village. Yes, that dance has a lot of significance because it gives a lot of implication to what the harvest would look like. It motivates all the workers and they feel happy while working without stress. In this case, that's why I thought it wise. Dance is so inspiring. When they do this, the big history of the origin of our agricultural background is being traced, and equally the history about the earth and its origin, some specific ideas are already coming out, thereby answering a lot of questions about the Big Bang. So just get a listen at it and you will get more.
Aidan, I think you are on mute. I'm sorry. We haven't heard your voice yet.
Testing. Can you hear me? Oh, I was amazed by the video, so I forgot about unmute myself. Thank you again, Eric, and thanks to your colleagues and showing the dance in the video. The presentation is full of energy. I can really feel it. And now we are moving from Cameroon to US. We have Mr. Garret Potter, who is an elementary school teacher. He is pursuing Master of Education and Master of Information at University of Michigan. Garret has given over 500 performances, including the one on the first day of our conference. So, Garret, please.
I'm Garret Potter. It's a privilege to get to meet you today. I teach kindergarten and a variety of early learners, ages 4 to 8, here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm a father of a 6-year-old expecting a newborn any day now. Big History is dear to my heart. It's core to my story. I spent about 10 years of my life ardently religious, serving and propagating mythology. It's important to me to provide early learners with foundational context, grounded in facts, evidence, and verifiable truths. When I became a kindergarten teacher here in Ann Arbor, I asked my students, what do you want to learn most this year? One little boy, Joel, tells me, I want to learn about all the oceans and all the continents on Earth. Inside I was thinking, ooh, you're not going to get there until maybe 5th grade at the soonest. The same boy would show up to class and ask about things he had learned at church or things that he was learning at home. He often grappled with the things we encountered in school and the things he was told by grown-ups he loved. And even then, there was so little that we shared in the social studies curriculum, even here in a great school district like Ann Arbor. I found myself supplementing our classroom with excellent books, books that had answers. I found myself torn daily when I would read books aloud to my class. How much am I allowed to share? What things are taboo? What things am I legally allowed to share with students? It was an immense challenge. Mostly inside, I found it challenging that I should ever have to censor facts and information from children who are asking for them, for the sensitivities of adults who do not have fact-based answers. It is troubling to be an educator in today's schools and to have to tiptoe around the sensitivities of traditions and mythology. And in doing so, to disempower students, to fail to build foundations at the most pivotal times when children need something to build onto. And sure, there are more foundations than just time scales or the scientific method. But these containers fit everything else inside. For all of human history that we have a record of, all of recorded human history, some would say history, humans have been asking questions, big questions, and trying to find answers, or creating them themselves, all across the globe. And before this, we know that oral traditions passed down stories from long before the written record. These questions are not new, they're not unique, and they're nothing to be afraid of. As an educator here in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and a father, and someone who grew up in 9 United States and Tokyo, in more than 20 homes as a child, raised by more than 7 men and 7 women, it's close to my heart to be able to provide children a sense of stability, stability founded on facts and evidence. And I find that big history is the most exciting way to provide that. When my students have big questions, I want to provide them with context. They're already finding ways to build context on their own at church, museums, in books, on YouTube, on Netflix, and at school, and beyond. Educators in the past have tried to reform our social studies curriculum many times over. Maria Montessori, for one, had created something, or repackaged something, called cosmic education, a cosmological context within which to fit all of learning, a connected learning. Kieran Egan wrote a book called Getting It Wrong from the Beginning, where he talked about how our social studies curriculum has been getting it wrong from the beginning, how we've been doing a disservice to our children by not providing them this cosmological context, this greater big history context. In Cosmic Education, the Montessori Elementary Classroom by Michael and Danielle Duffy, Michael and Danielle describe how Maria and her grandson, Mario, had established a curriculum to help children answer these large-scale questions and find their place in the world. Since Maria's time and into today, I find that we haven't made nearly the progress we can. Because of that reason, when I became a father, I created my own curriculum for my son in which to help him understand the world. I used Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs and created a needs and actions framework, a very rudimentary system where I say, today we get to live. And I talk to my son about all of the needs we have, from air and water and food to safety and love and esteem. And we go through our day and we see what ways we might be able to meet our most essential needs. And not only meet our own needs, but once our needs are met, help others meet theirs. This connected experience I have found to be priceless in raising my son and in teaching other children. Beyond my needs and actions framework, I have found and dug across the world for the best resources that exist. I am still happy to search and find more. My favorite book to help teach big history to early learners is It Started with a Big Bang by Floor Ball and Sebastian von Donnick. In this brief children's book, all of big history context is explored from the Big Bang to the present in vivid, beautiful pictures, very simple, clear, understandable phrasing. And it makes our story, our combined history, exciting. Just as exciting as it is. I find books like this to be priceless and pivotal in helping young learners establish large-scale context. Beyond Floor Ball's work, I have found The Everything Seed by Carol Martignascio and illustrated by Joy Troyer. It's a fantastic book that talks about the beginning of life with a seed of sorts, and how that seed carries on, and how that seed bears a sort of promise in everything else to continue carrying on life one way or another, unfolding, blossoming. It's an extraordinary book. Beyond The Everything Seed, I have enjoyed Christopher Lloyd, who is also a presenter at this conference, his Big History Timeline wall book, and his Big History poster book, as you can see here along my wall, to be foundational and fantastic in teaching big history. It folds out with a giant 6-foot timeline. The poster book's even larger, 10-foot timeline with beautiful illustrations done by Andy Forshaw, with help by Patrick Skipworth. Christopher Lloyd and What on Earth Books have created a whole array of fantastic big history context building books. In addition to these, Jennifer Morgan and Dana Lynn Anderson have created a series of books, a 3-part series called Born with a Bang, From Life to Lava, and Mammals Who Morph. The Universe Tells Our Cosmic Story. And it personifies the universe. In my learning work at the University of Michigan, it's my hope to help contribute to big history and collective learning. The way I think that I can best do that is to obtain additional training and conduct research in educational psychology, curriculum development and reform, and learning experience design. My long-term goal is to collaborate with a team of experienced educators like yourselves, computer scientists, and curriculum specialists to provide absorbing, appetizing, and grounding big history learning experiences to digital and primary school learners. In doing this, I think about all of the different learning materials that are available for my son and for early learners in kindergarten, first grade. I think about literacy learning apps like Lexia and Khan Academy Kids. I think about Lexia Core 5 and how fantastic it is to help children learn literacy. I think about mathematics learning tools, gameful learning tools like Dreambox. And I think about social studies. And besides some of the basic foundational relational skills and social skills embedded into Khan Academy Kids and other programs like it, There is no big history gameful learning app in existence yet. The Big History Project is a fantastic curriculum for middle school, high school, and college level learners, and lay people like myself, who found it apart from a school, and found it through the works of David Christian and others, and Bob Bain here at the University of Michigan. But I think about our early learners, those that Maria Montessori knew needed great large-scale context. And I think I want to be a part of creating something, or help those who are going to create something, that provides children a way to explore big history with exciting, engaging, appetizing, self-directed experiences. A choose-your-own-adventure sort of exploratory big history learning app that it combines many of the fantastic resources I've talked about that exist in print, that takes all of these satellites of sorts of learning and information and compiles them in one place where a child can explore and start like Christopher Lloyd's daughter did with penguins and expand there to everything. To start with dinosaurs and expand from there, to start with bicycles or cooking utensils or anything, and be able to expand out from there based on their own curiosity and find big history context available at their fingertips. I hope to continue in my studies, to learn from others like you, to overcome my shortcomings, my biases, my prejudices, to help eliminate the xenophobia and ethnocentrism that is rampant in our age, all by providing fascinating, factual, big history context to early learners. Thank you for your time. Again, my name is Garrett Potter. It's a privilege to meet you.
Thank you so much, Garrett. What a fantastic presentation, and congratulations. Last but not least, we have Dr. Rachel Osa from Hong Kong. Rachel is a science educator at the Independent Schools Foundation ISF Academy, where she has taught middle years program science since 2012. She is a member of the multidisciplinary study teams which manage educational research and integrate sustainability resources and so on. And today, Rachel has also invited her student for sharing. Rachel, please.
Hello, depending on which time zone you're in, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Rachel Oser, and I am a secondary teacher at the ISF Academy. And I taught big history, and you'll see I'll explain, including an aspect of citizen science, to a group of students as an elective course. And this is the setting, the school that I teach in. It's called ISF Academy, and it has grown in the last couple of years very quickly to over 2,000 students. And being in Hong Kong, there is a large segment of the curriculum that is taught in Chinese. And in the secondary school, they follow the International Baccalaureate curriculum or framework. But for the course that I was teaching, it's under the Department of Shiyuan, which is a special department created to focus on scholarship in Chinese and Western classics, as well as STEM, and is quite multidisciplinary, and doesn't, because they're sort of elective courses, and it took place every Wednesday afternoon. We called those big learning afternoons. There was no assessment associated with the class. The students didn't have to, do any summative work that was graded. It was really about learning for learning's sake. So students chose it because they're interested in science. And these are grade 7 to 8 students, so they're somewhere between the ages of 12 to 14. And this is the description of the course. I won't read the whole thing. Let me move this here so you can see. But It included an aspect of citizen science because it is under the STEM part of Shiyuan, so science is very important. And the idea of citizen science is that every person can be a scientist, right, or can contribute to science in some way. Every person can collect data. And the course was originally designed around, I wanted to use big history as the framework, but that for each class, there was supposed to be some kind of field work or trip or some kind of experiment that would then gather evidence, or would be some sort of activity for one of the thresholds in big history. Unfortunately, COVID threw a dagger in some of those plans, so we couldn't really get out and do much field work, but we tried as much as possible. I used a lot of online simulations. There's something called Zooniverse. I'll show you an example later where students can contribute. They're just large databases, and I would look to see if there was a topic that matched what we were doing according to one of the thresholds. Move here, sorry. Okay, so this is the, and I'll keep coming back to this slide. This was the general outline for the course. And I tried to fit everything onto one slide. I apologize. I know there are a lot of words here. But we spent the first 3 classes or so doing an introduction to big history and citizen science as well. We sort of reviewed what is a scientist, what does a scientist look like, just to sort of break down the general or assumptions or preconceived notions of what a scientist should look like, and that anyone can contribute to the world of big data. We had some interesting lectures on COVID-19 and asked the students to generate wonder questions about that and also about how the universe began. Of course, the students, we watched David Christian's TED Talk together, The History of the Universe in 18 Minutes. And then we introduced the thresholds and some keywords like complexity and Goldilocks conditions. We did some modeling as well, the scale of the universe. We did the activity of the history of the universe on a string. And we also had the students explore the different origin stories to understand that this isn't always the way that history used to be taught. Each student had a different origin story to read at home, and then we came in and we did sort of like a speed dating activity where they had to go around and get the major elements of each origin story. So in this column here in the right, the column on the right, I just listed a couple of sample activities that we did for each threshold. So with threshold 1, the Big Bang, we spent about 1 class on that. The students were really intrigued. I can't say that it's something I've mastered. I feel like those concepts are difficult for anyone to master. But to introduce the idea of randomness, we did the dice activity to see how many times students could get a big box with like over 100 dice in the box, and they kept having to shake it to see how many times they'd come out with an actual pattern. And of course, that never really happens. We discussed entropy, free energy, and how much space there actually is in an atom. And you can see here, this was the analogy that we talked about with the students, the idea of free energy here with the policeman who seems to be ordering traffic. And this is an analogy that David Christian uses in his book versus the policeman who's just sort of dancing in the middle of the street, which is the idea of heat energy or supposedly wasted energy, and how important that free energy or available energy is in order to lead to the next complexity. This, by the way, sorry, just when I was talking about origin stories, I had the students do this Zooniverse activity, which is, it takes, you can see it's here, mapping historical skies. It takes some old, that are in libraries and reference materials, old pictures, and that might have been mapped on, ceilings of cathedrals or wherever. And these are actual paintings. And asked the students to help identify known configurations or so this is sort of a way of machine learning so that they can sift through, and it actually helps the librarians so they can understand the idea of citizen science in that way. We also did, we had a class on yoga to teach us about the space that's available within us when we were talking about how much space there is in an atom. And to go back here, we also did some experiments with the students, endothermic versus exothermic, just to show the idea of energy that is taken in from the surroundings versus given out to the surroundings. And threshold 2, when we talked about stars lighting up, I did have some samples of helium, hydrogen, believe neon or some other elements that students were able to view using a spectroscope, so they could understand how stars light up and how they make different colors. And we did an introduction to the periodic table, which led us to threshold 3, where we did a nuclear fusion activity, and the students ordered the life of a star and, of course, tried to memorize the periodic table using the song. But this is something that they would also do in their science classes. Threshold 4 and 5, and you can see those took up considerably more time. Threshold 4 we spent 3 classes on, and threshold 5, 7 classes on. And it has a little star because that's when we had to go online. And that was a bit more challenging. But we talked about the formation of the Earth and the rock cycle. And we had to I sent home some materials. Some students almost burnt their houses down because I sent home a candle and a sugar cube and asked students to melt the sugar cube to simulate, to make a model of the rock cycle. So for example, that's this, right? And they had to actually break the sugar cube down to show how weathering would take an igneous rock and then form sediments, and over time how that would form sedimentary rock, and how heat and pressure would melt the rock, the sedimentary rock, into metamorphic rock, and then they saw the caramelization of the sugars. They kind of had to relate the model of melting the sugar to the rock cycle. And we also did a couple of other activities. I sent them each home with 1 rock, and they had to try to identify it using a dichotomous key. And Professor Alexis Lau gave us, he was very generous with his time and gave us a lecture on the early atmosphere. And you can see that here. I won't play it right now, but starting with Andrew, can you tell us either one thing you... the students each talked about what they got out of that lecture. I will share the slides with you so you can go through the video yourselves. It's about 9 minutes long, so I don't want to play it right now. But they really enjoyed Professor Lau's lecture. And threshold 5, life, really took a long time. I think that's the most interesting to students, basically all of biology. We talked about the mini thresholds. We did this toothpick fish activity to show the importance of how the environment affects, evolution. I don't know if anyone's seen that activity before. Any activities that aren't on the Big History website resources, I linked here if anyone would like to use them in the future. But basically, it's about forming a gene pool. I gave them each a plastic petri dish. We sent this home with colored toothpicks, and they randomly had to pick them out and pair them. And there's a story that happens over time, things like being able to camouflage, the green fish being able to camouflage in the algae, but then there's some kind of environmental spill that kills the algae, so then all the green fish die off. Anyway, it goes through a whole story and gets the students to understand how important that relationship is between the environment and the formation of species. We also looked at the tree of life. We talked a lot about Luca, our ancestor. And there's a fantastic children's book called Older Than the Stars, which basically goes through the history of the universe and talks about how we're all made of stardust. And so that link right here is a link to a YouTube reading of the book. Also had students make a storyboard of the mini thresholds. If you'd like to see that, feel free to click on it. This was a little bit challenging because I had them draw at home while we were online, and they had to take photos and send them in. I also sent home seashells for them to try to identify and also test with. I showed them putting some acid on the seashells and what that does. Then once I think there were 1 or 2 classes that we were actually in person during that time, but it quickly went back online because we had another outbreak here in Hong Kong. And then we moved to Threshold 6, collective learning, and the students were fascinated to understand the evolution of Homo sapiens. And I asked them to create their own caves. Not everybody did it, but using a shoebox and sort of creating a story and what they would put on the walls of their own cave to show the way prehistoric humans lived. And thankfully, they came back. School was back in person around that time, and we created a little artificial archaeological dig in our school. Here's a photo of that. Sorry. You can see we used our little biodiversity garden, and I had some colleagues help me bury some ancient items, and they had to go searching and digging. And this is what they found, and they found them in different layers, and they had to categorize which layer it was in, and afterwards they had to create a story around it, what life was like at that time. And actually, let me go back here. Threshold 7 thankfully saw us in person again, and we were able to do some gardening. The students each they had to do some research about a crop and a little biography of a crop, and planted starting from the seed, and each class we would check on it and weed and water our plants. We did some soil experiments. We also had a great lecture on biodiversity, because at that time, not sure if any of you have joined in the City Nature Challenge, which is a challenge to document species around your city, and it happens at the end of April. It uses an app called iNaturalist, and the way that you can see here, this is Sean Martin. He's the one who heads up the City Nature Challenge in Hong Kong, and the students were fascinated by all the different animals he presented, things that people have found in Hong Kong. And you can see here, this is actually an activity that took place earlier in the year, but the students with their phones using the app iNaturalist to try to identify the species. Here's an example. It's actually a huge database, and it's a great example of citizen science. And I encourage you to look into that just for any course related to big history. You really feel like you're part of something larger. It's a nice activity. Going back to the outline here, Threshold 8, about cities and the rise of commerce and exploration. We did the activity from the Big History Resource Center on comparing civilizations. We looked at the trailer of the Anthropocene and talked about that. We also had a guest lecturer from China Light and Power, one of the 2 major electricity companies in Hong Kong, talk about the history of electricity generation in Hong Kong. And we quickly moved into things like climate change, which the students knew quite a bit about. But there's a great activity called the Climate Collage, where they have to order a bunch of photos and descriptions, and it basically teaches them about the complex web of cause and effect that leads to these sorts of issues. We also discussed renewable energy, and our school is fortunate enough to have solar panels, and you can actually see here when the students visited our solar panels. And this is our Center for Renewable Energy Education, which displays a couple of different models of solar panels. Here we have a wind turbine, a vertical wind turbine. We have a weather monitoring station. So the students are really lucky to be able to see some of this on campus. And we also moved into the future of where we think the universe is going to go and how we as humans need to help fix any damage that we've done to the universe. So we had a fantastic workshop given by a team from another HKUST and connected with Professor Alexis Lau. And that team had developed an app called Praise that measures air pollution, or actually looks at sort of the health index based on air pollution. And the students all tried that out and had a lot of fun. We had some quizzes back and forth, and you can see our group photo at the end of that workshop. And finally, in one of our last classes, we talked about the future as well, the Internet of Things, and how we can try to manipulate. So instead, with the way agriculture used to work, was really just depending on the weather, and sometimes people were lucky and sometimes they weren't. But how we can try to collect data and find those trends and use our intelligence and innovation to truly capitalize on the most efficient way to farm, for example. So go back to the outline here for a minute. And you can see that we ended with, we also did another citizen science project. Some students tried something called Project RISE, which is teaching machines to differentiate between steam and industrial pollution. So, and we discussed where we're heading in terms of the future. And as part of our last class, we did some reflection activities, and we also summarized what we learned in each threshold by putting together our word wall. And these are kind of lift the flaps for various keywords that are important for each threshold. Overall, I think it's a great interdisciplinary course. And even at the grade 7 and 8 level, I feel like we touched on things that students wouldn't normally touch on until almost university. So I enjoyed it as a teacher. I think the students seemed intrigued, and hopefully we'll hear from a student who can tell us his perspective. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Rachel. I guess we can also have the sharing video from Rachel's student.
Hi, my name is Zohar, and I took part of the Treaty and Science Big History BLA. Firstly, I think that this course offers a great insight on getting to know different kinds of sciences better. For example, the first part of this course was astronomy. Before the course, I had a great interest into astronomy, and taking this course made me understand what I was unsure about in the past. For example, we learned a lot about the Big Bang and stars and the chemicals inside them. After this, we learned about earth science, which included rock science and agriculture science. Every lesson wasn't on a different topic. Instead, every single lesson felt like it was connected to each other, which made the learning experience more smooth. I also believe this course provides a strong interdisciplinary aspect between the fields of science and humanities. Around the end of the course, we started learning about the growth of human civilizations and the spread of human population. While we were doing this, not only did we focus on the mindsets of the people at the time, but also the science which was involved to grow the population and civilizations, which also provided a better understanding of what happened there. My favorite topic we had discussed was the electricity usage in Hong Kong. One of the major electricity companies, known as the CLP, had come over to educate us on this topic. This topic taught me that electricity and power is the main ingredient for a civilization to grow. And in the olden days, people had to innovate and work hard to create a better source of power in order for civilizations to grow. Lastly, my favorite activity was when we had done microbits. Microbits is a programmable LED that allows you to display data through the LED. In the course, we had created a simple soil moisture sensor and tested it on different kinds of soil which was provided to us. It was a fun activity because I enjoy coding, and the software that this program has made it more enjoyable as it was more simple and easy to do. Thank you for listening to my video.
Thank you. And I guess Rachel has another student today for live sharing. Andrew, are you here?
Oh, yeah, hello.
Hello.
Hi, Andrew.
Would you mind to turning on the camera?
Oh, okay, let me check. Hello.
Great. Hello. So, Andrea, can you tell me more about your feeling on Big History?
So, I think Big History program is a well-made combination of both humanity and science because it has a lot of activities and learning we get to have. Even though there's only once every week, it covered like all of the 8 thresholds we learned about. From the Big Bang all the way to the modern revolution, which taught me a lot of things, like how we evolved and what really made Earth Earth. And so all of the thresholds contained fun experiments and others, but my favorite, I have 2 favorites, which is Threshold 1 and 7. So Threshold 1 is Big Bang, and there are 2 reasons why it's one of my favorites. The first one is because Threshold 1 is the first unit and how it really brought me into Big History, the introduction of complexity, Goldilocks condition, and how every detail mattered for the creation of this universe. And the second is kind of linked to the first because it's the starting point of science itself. So for Threshold 7, agriculture. Not only did we learn about how humans selected plants and livestock that are more tasty and turning wild weeds into tomatoes, mountain goats into domesticated sheep, we also went up to the garden and planted our own plants, nurturing them for weeks. Even though I didn't get my harvest because school was already over, it was a great experience watching the plants grow. So all in all, I'm glad I chose to use my time every Wednesday afternoon to learn about the timeline of the universe and everything in between. I really recommend others in the future to discover what Big History provides and get interested in science as much as I.
Thank you so much, Angela. And thank you, Rachel. And also thank you, Eric, Perpetua, and Garrett for the wonderful sharing. We can really see so many different approaches we can do with Big History. I think the audience and I are so happy to watch your videos today. And I can see we have some question in the Q&A box, but allow me to occupy for a while because I have talked to Perpetua and Eric in case we couldn't have them online today. And thanks CK for the coordination. So Perpetua is here today, so let me read aloud the response from Eric first, and then we invite Perpetua for her response. My questions for Eric, actually this is about the challenging part of teaching Big History in Cameroon, because to my understanding, so many Cameroonians are Christian. So how do they take the way of Big History explaining the origins of the world? And here is Eric's response. I can see the questions coming. It is obvious the origin of the earth and origin of man all falling in the same basket. In relationship to my video of traditional dance, many Christian children listen to this teaching as an abomination, as it is against the holy writing in the Bible. Most of the time, they reject the teaching. Some parents come complaining to our school authorities saying that I am destroying their Christian teaching. Many children find it difficult to get a proper understanding of continental drift. To our Christian learners, the earth was created by God. What I do is to present the videos of continental drift then give proofs of the fitting edges of the continents. I also talk about the rock ages in coastal areas of two separate continents, the same animal species in different countries of the same climatic zones. With this proof, they see a reason to think with me. Nevertheless, they ask me questions. That's why we don't feel the movement today. Then I say all this movement took about millions of years. So the drifting is slow and not easy to notice. But many parents more the back history. Some practitioners, like in the traditional dance I present, our grandmothers believe that the earth emerged from the ocean. The waters keep dropping and giving rise to more lands. I always remind them that before the arrival of Christianity in the 16th century in Cameroon, our ancestors knew that the earth originated from the sun and moon after a big fight. We need more time to carry on the teaching. Okay, so here is the response from Eric, just in case he couldn't get on Amit today. So Perpetua, can we have your response on the challenges when you're delivering big history in Cameroon? We couldn't hear you, Perpetua.
Do you have a red microphone button that you can press?
Well, for the Perpetua's icon, I see the green light. I guess the mic is enabling, but we couldn't hear you, Perpetua. Do you have a headphone or satellite like this one? No, but can you hear me, Perpetua? Okay, you can hear me. So I guess there will be some options for your maybe earphone to select the output of the audio. That is the setting on the computer. When you click the speaker icon, then probably it has some other options, either go with the earphone or computer speaker and so on. I really want to have Perpetua in the live discussion because Perpetua really trying so hard to get himself on the air. So I'm not trying to move on for the next question. I will try my best to help Perpetua.
Perpetua, at the bottom of your screen, next to the smiling face, there is a audio and video settings, and you may have to select which microphone to use. Yeah, so she's now checking those out.
because what I can see in the Q&A box, some questions are really asking our speaker from Cameroon, because we really want to know more from you. So that's why maybe let me check whether any question that we can ask Rachel or Garrett first. Okay, we have a question from Juna. Origins or birth of something does not always happen with a bang. Okay, yes, this one, thank you. Do elementary students get scared when they get to know it all started with a bang? And what about using alternate metaphors to bang, such as a seed? I'm wondering if we can tell the big history starting with a big seed instead.
Yeah, I think there are lots of different metaphors. Yeah, of course, Christopher Hitchens, I'm sorry, not Christopher Hitchens, Stephen Hawking and others would say, well, there wasn't a bang, it's not about a sound. It's about an expansion, an explosion of energy. And it's not an explosion like we think of with fireworks. So it is helpful, I think. It's really great to describe things in as many ways as you can. I think the more pictures you give to children, the more metaphors, the more illustrations, the better. As long as, of course, you're moderating how much at one time. Give them a chance to process them in between. But just like building a puzzle, you need all the pieces. And if you only give a child one piece, they might have a guess about what the whole puzzle is. But if you set all the pieces down, and you work together, you might figure out, oh, this piece goes here, this piece goes here. Oh, that piece belongs to a totally different puzzle. And so the metaphors can be useful. Some of them might serve for a time, but not be enduring. And so the metaphor of a seed for the Big Bang, something that grows out of that seed, is a great metaphor. And Carol Martignacio, her book about that, The Everything Seed, is really excellent. As far as it started with the Big Bang, even in this book by Fleur Ball, they make very clear that it necessarily wasn't really a bang. It was very quiet and very expansive. And so I think authors are working really hard to make these things not scary for children or not too daunting to grasp. And I think as we work on even more exciting forms of big history education for non-literate audiences, videos and games and things, we can incorporate all of that as well. It doesn't have to be frightening.
Okay, thank you, Garrett. Rachel, do secondary students get scared when they get to know it with a band?
No, I don't think so. I think they kind of like the drama of it all, if anything. But there were some students, Christian students in my classroom, and we talked about some of the alternative stories, and that's why I love the origin stories activity so much. And I feel like that can also probably be adapted to young children because it really just opens their minds to different ways of telling stories about the origin of the earth, and not to invalidate any one particular story. Right? We can say it doesn't necessarily mean it's not true. It's just these are different ways that people see how the universe began.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Here is another question to Garrett from CK. How do you use metaphors to explain to your son and other children that our Mother Earth is sick, sad, and crying now, facing a lot of political, social, economic, and environmental crisis? Garrett, that you mute yourself.
Thank you. Sorry, Aidan. Thank you very much. Great question. I think, Maria Montessori would say that children below the age of 6 often they think in concrete terms and are not yet ready for so much abstraction. They're trying to explore their natural world with their hands and with their senses. And Christopher Lloyd talked about that in his talk earlier this week as well. The different, I think he called it like the 5 wows or something, the different ways that we really get that amazement when we learn. But how we use metaphors to explain what Mother Earth is facing right now, I think you can use metaphors, but I think kids 4, 5, 6, 7 can also see it. I think, documentaries do a fantastic job of that. And even there's, if you look on YouTube, SciShow Kids and National Geographic Kids and lots of organizations are creating videos to talk about climate change to children, to address these things to young audiences in ways where they can imagine it, but they also can very clearly just see it. And I think you can use metaphors like Mother Earth or any other creature that kids are familiar with, a dog, a cat, a puppy, a fish in a bowl that hasn't been cleaned enough, anything like that, to describe what our atmosphere and our habitat can be like. But I also think that kids really like tangible, concrete, solid pictures and facts and data too. Kids really bite on to real information. They want the hard truths, and I think they thrive with them as well.
Yes, I think they do. Thank you, Garrett. So now, can I check with Perpetua? Hello, Perpetua.
Perpetua too. Up in the top right corner, I'm sending you messages, and I can speak with you through text, and I can walk you through to get you set up. We may have possibly that she calls me, and then we'll go through my microphone. Aidan, you can continue with another question while I get Perpetua.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Well, it really leads to another question raised by Barry, because he said, we see great variety of teaching adopted to our local situation, bring approach for our colleagues and friends in Cameroon. What can we do to help each other? Well, not just about the technical, the maybe devices or stable internet, is how we can really do to help each other, especially maybe for the developing countries, since, as Eric has told me, some of the people may not really accept to the science approach of origin story. So maybe let me ask Garrett, what will be your response? What can we do to help each other, especially for the people maybe in the developing countries, how to help them to set up maybe a better course for history?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have a friend in Tanzania. I bought a copy of Maps of Time for him for only a few dollars here in a used bookshop in the United States, and it cost me $40-something to send it the slowest, cheapest mailing rate that I could to get that book to Tanzania. There are serious challenges. I could not find a bookstore in Tanzania where I could buy a copy of Maps of Time for my friend. There are significant challenges, certainly. I think I don't know how to address that challenge. I think a lot of it is information sharing, resource sharing. If there are friends of ours in Cameroon and Tanzania and abroad, in every nation of people who are represented in our conference today, if you can share ways that Western, countries, I guess you can't really call it Western, but Australia, the United States, England, other countries who are resource overladen, who have too much resources. We got books and just sitting on shelves everywhere in used bookstores. If you know of good ways that we as a community can help get those resources to the locations where there are not enough of those resources, that would be really helpful. I think as a as an international big history conference. This is one of the greatest things, is seeing Eric working with his students to make those brooms and make those ties across timelines, and seeing Rachel working with her students in the garden and all across Hong Kong and on the rooftops of their school with their solar panels, and just seeing how different people are working with their communities and how they use the resources in their hands is really impactful for me. But I know that my friend in Tanzania, what would be most impactful to him is finances and books and computers and resources. And I think in right now what we're experiencing here is our friends in Cameroon having connectivity is helpful. And I hope that people feel free to use the messaging options here in AirMeet and the Q&A and the chat to chime in and say what sort of help would be helpful to them in getting big history education to their students, and maybe we can help each other.
Thank you, Garrett. Any comments, Rachel?
Yeah, I was going to ask if WhatsApp is a good forum for them, and that seems to work, at least for our friends in Cameroon or other places. And if we're not able to share the hard copy resources as easily, perhaps even just trying to meet in person virtually, trying to find a common time or sending videos to each other, even just using WhatsApp, at least connects people to different parts of the world and can get the students talking to each other. And I think it's also really part of the big history story because, the understanding of different cultures and sharing of information and collective learning. So I would hope we can arrange something like that.
Thank you, Rachel. It seems we got a question for you from CK. Rachel, it looks like your children have learned a lot of knowledge of complexities from you. How do you relate all what they have learned with the crisis like technology disruption, public health, for example, COVID-19, and environmental problems?
Thank you. So these are great questions because, and I think I saw somebody ask a similar question before, just about how we avoid the sort of negative messaging when it comes to crises, right, of Mother Earth crying, etc. And I will just back up and say, because the course that I taught was under the science department, I really focused heavily on that side. But basically, every time, I think the idea of a complexity is really positive. And generally, right, we're progressing and we're sort of moving into, into a better circumstance, humanity. So I think it's also just good to show the advantages and disadvantages of that. And, you can talk about how much technology has helped us and then also the disadvantages of how it might disrupt. You can talk about the importance of globalization and industrialization and, how cities have progressed and the movement, urbanization. And on the other hand, how that can also be a problem for public health. And then the same thing with environmental issues. So I think it's really just a balance. And then you can connect each of those sort of crises to various either thresholds or mini thresholds. And that's what I was doing all along, really.
Thank you so much, Rachel. It seems that Perpetua is getting closer to Perpetua. Can you hear me? Well, because I thought I hear from Perpetua because she was testing her mic. Perpetua, are you here? Sean, is Perpetua with you?
No, I haven't connected with her yet. We're still
because we have a few more questions for Cameroon from prior, but I guess Perpetua is trying to connect her mic.
I also moved the idea to, I will still work with her after this session to possibly get her at a table.
Or will it be easier if we just put her in the virtual table and continue the conversation with the audience? Would it be easier for her to do it?
Yeah, it's something that we can work through to get through, because I would love to hear what she has to say.
Okay, so unfortunately, Perpetua is still connecting to the Amity, but I guess Sean may have some trick to help her. And the time is 1:33. I guess we are running a bit late. So please, may I invite all of you to join the virtual table with our speakers. Each table can have 8 person maximum. So please join the speakers, and hopefully Perpetua can connect to the virtual table. And thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Garrett. And thank you for the audience attending these sessions. And thank you, Sean. So see you around.
Thank you, Aidan and Sean.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Perpetua. Thank you, Rachel. Thanks, everybody, for paying attention and watching.
Perpetua.
Perpetua, is your microphone working right now?
Yes, is it?
No.
Sign language.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you in the tables. I know before I want to talk to all of you, but I'm going to go find a table to myself so that other people who want to ask you questions will be able to. But feel free to send messages later. Thank you all. That was great to learn from you and what you're doing with your students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love to get this
Maybe we can move
into.
on to the next question. Actually, Priya asked questions for you, for teachers from Cameroon. One of you is trying to teach big history without disturbing cultural sensitivity of parents, and the other is using the cultural context to teach big history. What are the challenges and positives of each approach?
Using culture and tradition to teach big history is very easy here, because Africans, they believe in a lot of traditions. So when you ask children to go home, ask their parents about stories of their villages, where they are coming from, they will come back and tell you a lot of stories about their origin, about where they are coming from. And now we also bring in some songs. These songs now help children to learn their mother tongue, because they sing this song in their mother tongues, and they make sure that these songs that the parents teach them relates to the story that they tell them. So these songs help them to learn their mother tongue and to speak it. And it also help them to get closer to their culture and know about the origin of their forefathers. Yeah, so that's the strategy we use to teach children big history. Because if you go by Christianity, it's going to cause a lot of problems between you, the parents, and the school. So we use culture now to teach big history. We send the children, we make the children go back to their own parents and ask these questions. And then from there, we can be able now to relate to what we have with big history. Because if you don't let them go ask the question and come and you people discuss, it's going to pose a lot of questions, a lot of problems rather. So we let them go home, ask questions about their origin, their forefathers, their villages, where they are coming from, and then they'll come to us and tell us like a story. And they'll also teach them songs in their mother tongue that will help these children learn how to speak their mother tongue very well and get closer to their culture and tradition. Yeah, so this is what we do. So in some way now, Eric is very far from me, but he's trying to talk on phone.
Okay. We can see that we have some panelists here. Do other panelists have any question for Perpetua? Because, well, it is a great chance to to interact with Perpetua.
Rachel just typed into the chat here. Rachel asked, sorry if I missed this, but what about the Big Bang itself? In Cameroon, with your students, in what way do you teach the Big Bang to students who come from Christian houses, from Christian families?
Yes, that's the same thing we are saying, that these kids, they already have information about where they are coming from. So coming in with a big bang is kind of posting some doubts in their minds. So to clarify their doubts, I don't insist like telling them that there is no God, because I don't want to have problems with their families and the school. What I do is that I teach them and I just tell them that this is a story about the earth and humanity. This is the story how the earth was formed. This is how the earth came about. Yes. So they already know that this is a story. And it's just to create an awareness, because these are kids. It's just to create an awareness so that they know where the earth is coming from. And when they grow and become mature, they'll be able to understand these things better. And at that time, they make their own decisions. You have no problem with anybody. I didn't have that opportunity. If I had the opportunity, maybe I would have been better now, because I ended school at the primary school. I didn't have the opportunity to go to the secondary school to learn these things. And if any child is ending up the way I did, the child already have information about the earth, the creation of he already knows so many things that in future, it will help the person to understand better.
I wonder if there's any more of the Q&A from last session that we had missed. That might be a good. We have we're starting the next session about 5 minutes late, so we have a couple minutes to ask a few more questions.
By the way, Sean, will this be posted on YouTube?
I will add this to the end of the last session.
That would be great.
Yeah, so we can have this discussion. This is awesome. Did we already cover this one from Nagarjuna? Origins or birth of something does not always happen with a bang. Do elementary students get scared when they get to know it all started with a bang? What about using alternate metaphors to bang, such as a seed? And wondering if we can tell the big history starting with a big seed instead. Question is, why stick to a single metaphor? There could be alternate metaphors of origin. Do you have any opinion of that, Perpetua?
Yeah, many different ways to approach a piece apart from tradition. Okay.
I'm still trying to come up with new strategies to approach the kids. It's quite challenging. I'm still trying to develop new ways to approach the kids with the history. And we have a challenge here in Africa is that we lack so many didactic materials. We lack materials or means to better explain this to kids. Yes, so we are still trying to come up with new strategies.
My other comment that I loved with your video was use of music with your students when they were giving the short story of the Big Bang and how they were kind of in beat for it. Do you use music a lot when you teach these concepts?
Yes, I use music a lot because music helps the kids to be alive, and it also helps to explain a lot of things through singing, through songs. Hello.
Hi, Mona. We're asking questions for Perpetua. We had some difficulty during the session, and Perpetua has been going on about using music currently with her teachings.
Even I want to connect with her and see in what way we can help. So that's why I joined the table. Good work.
Did you hear that, Perpetua?
No, I didn't get.
Mona, would you mind saying that again? I didn't have the mic next to the speaker.
I said I joined to see how I can be of any help. And you're doing great work.
Thank you, Mona.
Perpetua, just continue. Let Perpetua, I'm sorry to interrupt it. Just continue.
Hello.
We have a question from Tan. Bible says men were made of soil, right? Can we start with this metaphor?
Yes. You can.
Perpetua, do you have any final thoughts in the last minute before we start the next session?
Yeah, I want to talk about music because that's one of the methods I use in teaching my children, because music makes them happy, it makes them open up, and it has a lot of things to say. You have a lot to say in music. Yes, and these songs are not just mere songs, like inspirational songs, which I sang using our own mother tongue. Yes, and when a child is singing. Hello.
I'm still here with you, Perpetua. They just started the session, but you can finish your thought as I am recording this, and then we can jump back into air meet.
Okay. Yeah, I use a lot of songs to teach my kids because that will help them a lot to get connected to their origin, because our forefathers in those days, they use a lot of songs, they sing a lot of songs, and these songs, they sing to the earth, they sing to the sun, to the moon. So when you are using songs, you now draw the children closer to big history, to make them understand a lot of things. Yes. I just use songs and storytelling for now because it's kind of complicating, because even the school is not really accepting big history. So we don't want to do anything that's going to complicate us. So I'm just using storytelling and songs for now to draw the children closer to big history and their origin. That's all for now.
Well, thank you so much. That was a beautiful session. I loved all the videos for all the panelists. It was a great to see them from all over.
Thank you.
Are you going to be hanging out and watching any more of the sessions, or are you going to be going to sleep like I should?
No, I'm going to go out for my daily activities because I borrowed. We have problems getting my laptop here to connect. Yeah, so.
Well, thank you so much, Perpetua. We hope to get you again for all the other events that we have throughout the year. I hope this is more than just once a year.
Thank you, sir. And I'm glad to meet you too. And I hope I'll see you again.
Yes, I want to come to Cameroon now. I want to send you videos of my students here in Vermont, and come and meet yours. Well,
wow.
Thank you.
I'll be happy. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.